Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we're going to be modifying our index.php file and creating a Bootstrap file. So all a Bootstrap file is it's basically our initialization file that gets everything that we need ready for the application. Now, in theory, we could just throw this in our index file, but that's not really how we would do this since we're following a more industry standard. Industry standard, we will create a new file and we will call this bootstrap.php. And don't confuse this with a bootstrap like Twitter bootstrap. This bootstrap file is going to be pure pure C. I'm sorry. This bootstrap file will be pure PHP. Now, I'm just going to open up our PHP, and this will be in the index file. We're not going to close this, and this will probably be the shortest index file you ever write. And so I'm going to start a session, and then I'm going to create a couple of constants. So I'm going to create a directory separator, and all that is it's going to reference the directory separator constant just to make it so we can use it shorthand. And then I'm also going to use the define function, which will also create a constant. And mainly the reason why we're doing this is because I'm using a function, and defining a const like we just did doesn't seem to work like when you have an actual function being called. So, or at least it might, and I just might have done it wrong in the past. But ever since I tried doing that and wasn't able to, I've always used the define for the specific variables, or when I call functions for a constant. So I'm going to call this root. And in the root, we're going to take the dir name function and plug in the directory constant, and then follow that up with a directory separator. And then finally, we're going to require that bootstrap file we just created. So that's going to be require once, and then root, and then we're going to go into the core file or folder, and then we're going to use the directory separator, go into this init folder, and then we're going to use another directory separator, and then we're going to do bootstrap.php, and we can get rid of the rest of this. And we can verify that this is working if we go into our Bootstrap and we just do hello from Bootstrap. And since we don't have any PHP tags open, if we just load this, hello from Bootstrap, perfect. So now if we go back to the Bootstrap folder and we open up our PHP tag, we aren't going to close it here. Essentially, we're just going to add a bunch of constants that will reference all these different folders on the side here. First, so const app, I'm going to set that equal to root.app.ds. And then I'm going to create another const for the controller. I'm going to set that equal to app.controllers.ds. And then I'm going to do one for the models, const model, and we're going to set that equal to app dot models, and keep with the same models.ds, and then const view, and we're going to set that equal to app dot views, and in fact that's not capitalized. And then we're going to say that layout, so const lay is equal to vie dot layouts.ds, And then we're going to go into our config folder, which actually is not in our app folder. And actually, before that, we'll do const API is equal to app dot and then API slash. Now, we're not going to go into the version. And in fact, you know what? Well, we'll come back to this and do it later, but we'll add the version directly to this later on. We'll create a config file for that later, but first we have to write our config class. So we'll come back to this and modify that later. So const. Now I'm gonna go into the config folder. So conf. Now I'm gonna set that equal to root dot config dot ds, and then I also want to create a core folder, and so we'll do const root, and then we'll do not const root, geez, const core is equal to root dot core dot ds, and then const init, which we probably won't have to reference the init folder anymore, but we might have to later. So I'm just in case. And then we'll do const DWL for download is equal to root dot downloads dot ds. Then we'll do the same for the uploads. Const load is equal to root dot uploads ds. And we're defining all this here so that way we don't have to define it ever again, or because we're going to reference this quite a few times. And in fact, in this uploads and downloads, we may even change some of this up later. And we could reference the public folder, but we won't have to, because anytime we have reference anything from public folder, all we do is just use the slash and it will reference it directly. So what next up? Oh, you know what? There's also a vendor const vend, and that's going to be equal to root dot and then vendor dot ds, and we'll come back to that later. It's just we aren't using the vendor folder just yet. It will automatically create the vendor folder whenever we install our first package, which I believe we're doing in the next video, which will be for our php.env. So if we go here, we'll be creating a config in the next video, but we're going to access all of these config folders using the global function. So if we do $G and we set the equal to globe, and then we do the conf, and we're going to be using a special naming convention, which I like to use a naming convention like this. I like using a special naming convention. So normally you do star.php, but I actually like to use a naming convention. So I do config.php, and actually this should be .config.php like that. And just so that way you understand what this does, we're gonna var dump this $G, and we're going to create a new file. I'm just going to call this dev.config.php, and we'll come back and we'll actually use this later on. I'm just going to say hello from dev.config real quick, just that way we can see what happens in the view. So as you can see, this is actually automatically grabbing this dev config. Now, if we were to go and create another config file like test.config.php, it also grabs this one as well. So you see this dev con. Oh, I forgot to reload it. There we go. Okay. So you see it has the first one, and then in the next array element, it adds this test config. And then if we go and we delete this test config, because we're never going to use that, we refresh, it gets rid of it. That's all that globe function does. But next, we actually want to require that file. And we want to do this, if I can find my, get rid of this welcome. So we want to require this. And since we know that it's coming in as an array, we can loop through it. So we can say for each $G as $F for file, we want to require once $F and then save. Now, if for whatever reason this tries to require it twice, it won't allow that because of that require once. Instead, it will kill the application. And you can see we're getting this hello from dev config now. And so that's it for this episode. We'll be adding more to this Bootstrap file as we go, but for this episode, this is all we're doing. In the next episode, we're going to build out our config class, so that way we can create and get config variables from both this env file and any sort of config file that we create. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.